Did I ask that question? Act 2, Scene 3. Alright, here. I didn't have reading questions for that. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, does anyone want to know why is Hotspur trying to puff himself up?
He got a letter from a noble saying, like, this is why this is going to fail, and he basically was trying to come up with all the reasons why that dude's reasoning was wrong. So.
Yeah. So things are looking bad, but he's got there's a lot of that going on in this place. People trying to convince themselves of stuff. So it's because things are looking bad, but he's not going to back down. So it's like what I do before class every day. I go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and smack myself. You win that guy. You get him, kill. You know. That same thing. Yeah.
Okay, so how many people did Falstaff fight and kill? The numbers kept changing. So
Yeah.
Like there's no definite number.
Yeah. I mean the point is that I wanted you to wrestle with that. So it's because it's there's hilarious exchanges.
Right.
And if you're just you kind of go over it, you don't really. But I figured if you had to track down trying to count how many people then you would get the joke better.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
So it's either 2 or 100, somewhere between that.
It definitely went to 150, and then like 7 and 9 and 2. And
I think at the very end he like killed 11 people because I think Hal says, "Oh, 11 men out of 2."
Yeah.
So, but the actual number of people he fought is kind of fuzzy.
I think it's technically 0, right? Because they
Probably a lot of it's just Hal and Falstaff.
Well, they didn't fight. They ran away.
Yeah. So Hal and Poins, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, why does Hotspur accuse Indy of ingratitude?
Yeah. Like.
Because Hotspur and all his cronies sort of set up on the throne, so he's been sort of ousting them from the court and treating them poorly. So I think he's ungrateful.
Very good. Yes, ma'am.
Does Hotspur actually love his wife? Because he sort of said like, "Oh, I don't love you," just to like get her way, and then he's like, "Oh, I do love you."
Yeah, that's an interpretive question.
Better.
Well, we're going to be. We have the Monday's class is going to be all about the boys' club and women and all of that. But yeah, I mean, does he love his wife?
It seems like he does, but he just wants her to shut up and get out of his way.
Which if you tell a woman you love her or you don't love her, that's not going to make her shut up.
Yeah, but I mean, they kind of have a Kate and Petruchio relationship, right? They're cute. First cousins. Woohoo! Yeah.
Why doesn't the Chamberlain try to stop Gadsfell's plot? Because he offers him a cut, but the Chamberlain is like, yeah, right, like that'll happen. So that's what I put, like he's offered a cut of the profit, and maybe that's why. But at the same time, he doesn't believe that he's even going to get one.
Perfect.
Okay.
You answered your own question. Yeah.
I was going to say, the Chamberlain is the guy's informant. Because he's like, yeah, we have these many people, and he has so much money, so he's telling, what's the other guy's name?
Gadsfell?
Yeah, Gadsfell, about, what the people on the inside had, so that we know how much to steal inside.
Yeah.
What is how reveal his long-term plans?
What?
One and two.
Oh, he's gonna reform after. He's gonna like be rambunctious and then he's gonna reform, so everyone will think he's that much cooler.
Yes, ma'am.
Who is Sir John Ponch and John of Gaunt? So I read that John of Gaunt was like Hal's grandfather. But I don't know who Sir John Ponch is.
John Ponch is like another name for Falstaff because he's so fat.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
Why does he say he's fat?
But isn't the dialogue King Falstaff? This is hot.
Yeah, he's calling him fat to
Like,
his face.
is it just like a nickname? It's not like an actual person?
Yeah, 'cause like paunch is like, you know,
Fat.
extra
Yeah.
fat.
So
Yeah.
I looked that up, but okay.
Wait, so why did you say that?
Well, because he's fat, and I mean they've got this really. I mean they're bros, man. You know, like I mean it's we'll talk a little bit about this too, but there's what goes on behind closed doors, ladies, is when you get a bunch of guys together, especially if they're good friends, they just insult each other, and it's we'll speculate on the social function of that, but. I remember when I was a lad, we used to insult each other a lot, and it was if you got mad at an insult, then you lost. So it was just about trying to insult the person to the point where they wanted to kill you, but they can't do anything about it because that's a breach of the masculinity bubble.
But like, why does, like, according to most stats, why does he fight?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
he's eating his troubles away. Yeah, eating his feelings. That's right. He's funny.
Why does he know the time of day? That question, I mean, why is he even asked? Do they know his parents? Is it just to be
I wanted you to have to read through and try and figure it out. There was some of those questions I just put in to make you struggle, like the count number. Well, no, just because I want you to read it. You know, like I mean, I don't want you to just go through and get the answers.
Didn't he say that like he works at night? He's a thief, so like maybe he wanted to know the time of day, like how.
Yeah,
close is
he wanted
it
to know
to
that
us?
if it wasn't the time of day.
Huh?
He wanted to know if it wasn't the time of day
What? Oh.
because he doesn't want the day.
Daytime
Yeah.
at all.
Huh. Oh. Okay.
So it's just a waking up at sundown joke.
Got it.
Waking up at sundown joke. Just it's establishing his character that he sleeps all day, and that he drinks a lot of sack. I myself can't stand sack. It's too sweet. Yes, sir.
What is the extension that Hotspur imposes on turning over his prisoners? Roll on H4. Please.
Yeah.
And so Mortimer, that's what Hotspur wants. And then H4 won't do because Mortimer is technically the rightful, should be known.
And Mortimer's Hotspur's wife's brother. And then so he goes and he gets captured in the battle with Glendower, who is so funny. And but then he marries Glendower's daughter while he's captured and switches sides.
Which is why he's charged with treason.
Yeah, so which is why he's charged for treason. And so I mean it's kind of up in the air. You don't know if when Hotspur's still making that condition, if Hotspur knows about that or not. And that sort of is the whether or not Hotspur's justified in because if Hotspur doesn't know about that and then he's standing firm on that, that means that he's not yet a traitor. But if he does know, then he means he's a traitor, and if he doesn't know, then he's not really a traitor, right? Does that make sense? Okay. It didn't to me. I actually I have no idea what I was talking about now. Do you get it? Okay. All right. Let's get this over with. Swap. All right. Yet herein will I imitate the sun, who doth permit the base contagious clouds to smother up his beauty from the world, that, when he please again to be himself, being wanted, he may be more wondered at. And what is the metaphor referring to?
Miraculous resurrection.
All right. Fabulous. And then my favorite. When I was dry with rage and extreme toil, breathless and faint, leaning upon my sword, came there a certain lord, neat and trimly dressed, fresh as a bridegroom, and his chin new wreaked. He was perfumed like a milliner. With many holiday and lady terms, he questioned me.
He's talking about why he denied to give over his prisoners.
Yeah.
He's irritable after that.
Okay. To conclude, I am so good a proficient in 1/4 of an hour that I can drink with any tinker in his own language during my life. According to Falstaff, why did Falstaff get robbed so easily?
He's fat. He went after
He had 100.
Yeah, it was his instincts. Because he has the heart of a lion, and there's a proverb that a lion can't attack a true prince. So his instincts, the heart of a lion, allowed him. That was.
So basically, these two makes
It's a good comeback.
I mean, it's just a really good comeback. I mean, they had him up. They had him. I was like, "You look like a punk," and he was like, "Well, that's my heart like a lion, dog."
It's the best thing you could have said, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's why everybody loves him. So, this play has always been pretty consistently popular. The only exception being in the Victorian era, because it doesn't lend itself well to big stagings. They were really into having big elaborate settings and mechanical swinging and all this around, and you can't really do that with this one. Along with Hamlet, Othello, and Julius Caesar, it's the only play to successfully withstand the Augustan/Restoration improvements. Like what I told you, they turned Lear into a comedy. This stayed pretty. Didn't get butchered like all the rest did, because they have to improve Shakespeare. Before the 20th century, nobody really cared about how. The stars of the play were either Falstaff or Hotspur, and it was either played as a tragedy about Hotspur or or Falstaff's comedy. And Hal's just always sort of been in the background until people started getting really interested in performing in government and like charisma, leadership, like Nazi kind of thing. So you really can read it as historically, like most people read it as, by far the first is Falstaff's comedy, and then Hotspur's tragedy, and then the story of a young man coming to terms with his place in the world. And then there's no major movie of it yet. Orson Welles kind of has one. Have you anybody seen Falstaff, Orson Welles? I haven't. I need to, because I teach film too. And then My Own Private Idaho. Anyone seen that? One person. Did you recognize it?
Yeah.
Me too. And it's a little slow going, but it's a good play. Let's take a look at the opening. Can I have someone read, let's say, the first 4 lines?
From the king?
Just the first one.
Yeah.
So shaken as we are, so wan with care, find we a time for fretted peace to pant, and breathe short-winded accents of new broils, to be commenced in strons afar remote.
All right. So if I'm like, all right, what are some key words to circle that indicate the tone or the kind of feeling of the situation that we're opening in? Shaking. Make sure I spell it right. What else? Frightened.
Maybe frighted peace, the fact that those 2 words that affect the
Frightened peace. About wan.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
See, it was a joke. She said, "Who's wan?" What does wan mean? Anyone know what wan means?
Like worn down and tired.
I like broils. That's my vote. Is that good enough, or is there anything else? So how would we so taking those terms, how would we describe what's going on? Is it calm? Is everything right? Is it stable? So not those. First of all, who's this we that he's talking about? Because you guys might not know about this convention of royal talk. Yeah, so on the one hand, it's the royal we. You'll see when he's issuing proclamations, because it's there's the body of the two bodies of the king. You know about the two bodies of the king. There's the body politic, where it's sort of the celestial, that's the divine right thing, and then there's the material body of like the guy. And so when he says we, when he's talking about we, he's evoking the celestial body of the king. And it's the royal we. I use it in papers sometimes. Yeah.
But why would he use the royal we if he actually isn't like the chosen by God king? Because
well, you still got to go through the motions, man. But I mean, but you could say, well, I don't think he's using the royal we here. I think he's just talking about us. Would any of you say that? Yes? Okay. Well, so what would be the difference if we were to say, if he's talking about we as in us, or if he's talking about we as in me projecting my royalness and evoking the royal we? How does that change what's going on?
Well, that would change it from being, a global situation to just him being stressed out over, maybe squabbling, but no really war.
Right. Right. Or do you want to add to that or change to that?
Well, I was pretty much going to say the same thing, just like if it's the first one he's showing weakness and saying like, we're ready for a frightened peace and things like that, but if he's talking about the country, then it's better because he's not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it changes it from it being a personal crisis, like we have pooted our pants, or we have a crisis on our hands, right? So what we're going to want to look for is to if why do I say things like that? The censor is just not.
It's not.
Yeah. So as we go through this scene, let's look for, try and figure out if he's making this about him or if he's worried about his country. All right. So this first sentence. Does anybody else have trouble trying to kind of make sense of this first sentence? Like, what's the subject of the first sentence? There were like subject, verb, object, that sort of thing. Do they still teach that? So subject is in a regular sentence. It's John punched Susie. So what's the subject? Okay. What's the verb? What's the object? Okay. So who's the subject of the first sentence? Okay. I'll buy that. So shaken as we are, so wan with care, find we a time for frightened peace to pant, and breathe short-winded accents of new broils to be commenced in strawns afar remote. What's the verb? So the first line, that's two auxiliary clauses, right? So we can take those off and we don't change, or so, because we got so, no, because so makes it. Wow, this is grammatically sort of complicated, huh?
Isn't find the major verb for that?
Yeah, so we're putting find out there as the major verb of the sentence. Let's see if that makes sense. Find we a time, so can we find or find us, or how would we read that in regular language?
Find this time so to breathe.
Yeah. So let's try and paraphrase this. Let's try and make a sentence out of it. Because to me it sort of feels like a rhetorical question, but there's no question mark. So I'm kind of looking for, can we find time to breathe? But he's issuing it as kind of a proclamation.
Is it more like we must find time to breathe the new troubles in, with short-winded accents of new broils? So they're like taking rest in the India troubles, I guess.
Okay. Well, and so is it a command to do that, or is it asking if we can do that, or is it
Suggestion maybe?
a suggestion, which is
Which is
weird
more
to
of a
be,
command.
which is weird for a king to open a play with. All right. I think that's okay. Can anybody think they do better? I'll say what I have. I have, even though everything is crazy, let us find a minute to figure out a way to start some new war somewhere else. But I'm also thinking that now you may have heard a rumor about this, but they say that Shakespeare had a way with words. So if you find something that's indecipherable, that's really confusing, does that mean that Shakespeare doesn't know how to write, or is he trying to get across something?
Probably trying to get something across.
So if somebody's tripping all over their syntax and you can't find the subject or the verb or the object, and you don't really know what he's talking about, odds are he himself probably doesn't really know what he's talking about. And that could be the point. Mental illness, or maybe he's just, I don't know. What do you think?
Just the state of his mind from all this trouble.
Yeah.
It's just reflective of how disjointed it's become. He's reflecting the chaos of the country.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd second that. Maybe he's also trying to emulate what the king's own mindset might be. I don't know, maybe he's had his own mental issues or something like that.
He's emulating his own mind state.
No, he's emulating the king's mental state.
But he's the king, right?
What?
Isn't he the king?
Who? Shakespeare?
Oh, you mean Shakespeare. Okay, I thought you were talking about the king. I'm like, wow, I thought it was going to be really deep. I was like, yeah, I think that that's where I'm going with it. And I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses, so if you're raising your hand, you're gonna have to be. I can see Blake. I can recognize him because of the shape of his head. But everyone else is sort of a little.
I'll go with that.
I have nightmares of him making fun of Pinkerton. No. All right, let's try the next sentence. Maybe things will start clearing up. Who wants to give it a shot?
How far?
From no more to paces.
Okay. No more the thirsty entrance of the soil shall dog her eyes with her own children's blood. No more shall trenching war channel her fields, no bruise her flowerets with the armed hoofs of hostile faces. These opposite eyes, which like the meteors of a troubled heaven, all of one nature, of one substance bred, did lately meet in the intestine shock and furious close of civil butchery, shall now in mutual well-beseeming ranks march all one way and be no more opposed against acquaintance, kindred, and allies.
Thank you. Okay, that's good. So now what's he describing? No more thirsty entrance of this soil shall daub her lips with her own children's blood. What does that mean?
We just had a civil war.
No more civil war. Okay. And then no more, just repeating the no more. So sort of the repeating of the no more. This is kind of it's a rhetorical thing, right? So he's kind of giving a speech, maybe. No more the thirsty entrance of this soil shall daub her lips with her own children's blood. No more shall trenching war channel her fields, nor bruise her flowerets. I like bruise her flowerets. Okay. And then you got the opposite eyes like meteors. Okay, troubled heaven, all of one nature, blah, 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 of one substance bred. So now he's making metaphysical proclamations. The one did lately meet in the intestine, furious close. Civil butchery. It's civil butchery. It's one of those funny two words together like civil war. Genteel combat. Military intelligence. Okay. So what's he trying to do? So like so the big lesson that he learned in Richard II, and I wish we would have read Richard II too, but anyway, The big lesson that you learn from Richard II is the power of the king's words. And like what makes the king a king is the king's words enact things, is what the speech act theorist J.L. Austin, J something Austin calls elocutionary acts, words that do stuff. So the king is the person whose words do stuff. So what's he trying to do here?
Is he trying to convince everyone that they're not going to win the Civil War? So
Okay, he doesn't. It's not about convincing. It's about enacting. But yeah, so he's enacting the end to civil war, right?
The official and
Yeah, he's issuing it down in flighty, overblown rhetoric. Again, still confused. You know, and so note his speech, and then when we get to Hal's speech, how clear and to the point Hal always is, even when he's talking about really complicated things. You know, Henry will take a very simple thing and make it complicated and obtuse, and you know, like, and you can't understand it. But he's saying he's issuing a proclamation that the war's over. No more civil war, he says. All right, so let's start at, let's turn the page and let's look at the therefore, because therefores are, yeah, so let's go to line 27, ending at bitter cross, and we'll start with the therefore. Can I get a reader?
Therefore, friends, as far as to the sepulchre of Christ, whose soldier now under those blessed cross, we are impressed and engaged to fight. Forthwith a power of English shall we levy, whose arms we were molded in their mother's womb, to chase these pagans in those holy fields, over whose acres walked those blessed feet, which 1400 years ago were nailed for our advantage on the bitter cross.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get some tone words here. So what are we circling to get what he's trying to, the image he's trying to evoke here? I won't put them on the board this time.
Blessed.
All right, so we've got blessed. I'm putting out impressed. I think power. When he's talking about English, we levy, chase, arms, holy fields, blessed again, and then the Christ imagery. So is this how would we describe this? What's he trying to do here? What effect is he trying to produce? Is he trying to evoke an action or produce an effect, or how do you elicit the answer that you want without saying it? Right?
So is he comparing that the Christian Bible or Jesus?
Okay, so we've got that. So but let's start simpler. What is he suggesting? What action is he suggesting that we do?
Go on a crusade.
Hmm?
Go on a crusade.
Go on a crusade. All right. So he's like, but is he like, let's go on a crusade?
Evoking emotion.
Yeah. So he's it's like a rah go get 'em team speech, right? And so we get this all right. Let's see if I can do a moving speech. Therefore, friends, as far as to the sepulchre of Christ, whose soldier now, under whose blessed cross we are impressed and engaged to fight, forthwith a power of English shall we levy, whose arms were molded on their mother's womb, to chase these pagans in those holy fields, over whose acres walked those blessed feet, which 1400 years ago were nailed for our advantage on the bitter cross. That's why I'm not an actor. Like that, maybe? Or we can do it neat.
Give me chills.
Therefore, friends, as far as to the flute of Christ. All right, now I'm just being goofy. All right, stop being goofy, Daniel. Okay, Daniel, sorry. So, maybe he's a better inspirational speaker. This is what he was really good at in Richard II. He was really embarrassed when I was doing it. You were.
What?
You were embarrassed for me.
I was
I
not
appreciate
embarrassed.
it. All right. But then we've got another key word at the next sentence after this, right? So we've got a but. So we've got a therefore, and then we've got a but. So this is sort of something. Can I get a reader starting at but to take us home?
But this our purpose now is 12 months old, and bootless is to tell you we will go. Therefore we need not now. Let me hear of you, my gentle son, Westmoreland. What yesterday our council did decree in forwarding this your expedience. Forwarding.
Yeah, perfect. So now how does this compare to what we just to the therefore section? Now I'm gonna have to change my tone here, right? None of this inspiring. A lot of people cut that last part when they do this play. So what does this statement do to the statement before it? Take a look, take a gander at it and chew on it for a minute. Wait.
It just makes it pointless. I mean, the whole rah and but you can't do it.
Bootless. You know what bootless means, right? Love bootless. I'm trying to bring two things. I'm trying to bring back in this play is bootless and zounds man as a mild oath.
What is it?
Sound.
Hmm?
What sound?
God's words.
Yeah, it's a mild oath. I tried to bring What the Deuce back a while ago, and that didn't. But I think Zounds has potential. Yeah, so I mean, it's really just sort of deflates his own rhetoric, sort of like a self-castrating gesture. It admits defeat, impotence, and this is when Dr. Crumbo's like, I see. So this brings us back to, are we talking about the royal we, or are we talking about me? What would I think if I were me? Is he talking about himself? Is he sitting there feeling sorry for himself on company time and evoking the royal we while doing it?
Yeah.
Poor me, I had these dreams. So let me throw this hypothesis out there as we go through, because we're not really going to spend that much time with Henry, but I want this in the background. My hypothesis is that he feels guilty for usurping the king, and he's secretly pulling the rug out from under himself the whole time, and that we'll see him time and again purposely screw up situations to try and make it so he's hopeless. And I don't know, like maybe get really excited at the potency of his enemy, go the extra mile to make sure that he's the enemy. I don't know, we'll see. But we also have, we see this a lot in Shakespeare, we see this a lot in a lot of things, is the failure of the law / father, and that sets off the narrative. If the king's doing his job, if he's not having this personal crisis, if he's got the country under lock, we don't have much of a play, right? So it's kind of this takes us back to that old comic trajectory of we're slipping out of the father's house and going into the green world. All right. Yeah, and then I had this note is that he's already let the air out of his own balloon, and he hasn't even got the bad news yet, right? This would be an appropriate thing to say after he gets the bad news, but as far as he knows right now, the Civil War is over. So why is he already depressed? All right, let's just quickly, somebody give me Westmoreland's speech. We won't excruciatingly read this, but
Ace was hot and questioning, and the only one that's in charge left it up. But yesternight, when all the thought there came, the post from Wales, laden with heavy news, whose voice was that noble Mortimer, leading the men of Herefordshire to fight against the regular and wild Glendower. Was by the rude hands of the west, with the Welshman taken, and thousands of people butchered, upon whose death royalty such misuse. Such beastly, shameless transformation by those Welshwomen done, as may not be without shame before this work.
All right, cool. So what are some? So we're getting introduced into the Glendower's Welsh world here, right? And so what are some tone words here? Rude, irregular,
Shameless.
wild, shameless. So what is he describing there? Massacre. And what happened at the who's massacre? Good guy or bad guy? Or our side or their side?
Our side.
Yeah. And then what happened to the corpses? Yeah, by who? Oh, Welsh women. So Welsh women we're going to see are going to although they don't say much, they figure prominently. But we'll talk about that later. Too horrible to mention. Okay, and then let's just take a look at the from the quiz. I would have his Harry and he mine on page 6. Yeah, so let's have somebody read it up to the Harry line.
Yea, there thou makest me sad and makest me sing, and envy that my Lord Northumberland should be the father to so blessed a son who is the theme of honest tongue amongst the girls and very straightest plant, whose sweet fortune's minion and her pride, whilst I by looking on the praise of him, see riot and dishonor straight from the brow of my young Harry. Keep going?
Yeah, up to
Okay. Oh, then he could be proved that some night tripping fairy had exchanged from cradle clothes our children where they lay, and called mine Percy his Plantagenet. Then I would have his Harry and he mine.
Thank you. So then I would have his Harry and he mine is funny.
What's a Plantagenet?
What is a Plantagenet? Yeah, the house. All right, so he's envious, and I mean it's kind of a weird time to bring this up, don't you think? Maybe. And there's something wrong with this guy. I think that the royal crown is a bit cracked. So he's just thinking, sort of fantasizing about Hotspur. So, yeah.
I was just saying, maybe going back to that guilt thing, he wants someone who he thinks is virtuous and noble to come after him instead of Hal, who seems to be like this ruffian and goes around stealing things and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely going on there. But I'd like to suggest, along with that, sort of a writer thought too, kind of what I was hinting at before. That all right, what comes right after this speech? What point does he make? We don't have to read it aloud, but if somebody can just look down and. So right after he's gushing praises for the guy and how he wants to switch Harry's, and yeah, he's defying him, right? So what does Henry want from a son? So yeah, noble, cool, hard ass and everything, but obedience? Interesting. I also use this as evidence if I were to write a paper about how Henry's just feeling sorry for himself. I think here we have some more feeling sorry for myself on company time. Oh, and my son sucks, and I'm sad, and I don't have any boobs, and Northumberland's kid can totally beat up my kid, and and it just keeps making everything about him, and this was the problem with Richard. This was exactly the problem with Richard, is that Richard didn't understand that the royalty a metaphor, and like I said, he was the insane person, the insane king who thought he was a king. So are we supposed to think that Henry's a good king? I mean, are we supposed to think that he's evil? like bad that needs to be put down, or just sort of inept? That wasn't a leading question at all. Yes, sir.
I think Shakespeare's trying to capture a sense of, the nobility there, but also trying to show you that he's not really the rightful heir of the throne. So if he's not a king, there might be some good aspects to him, but he shouldn't be ruling. And so I think that's why he's portrayed as such.
And kind of knows it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's his kind of redeeming quality is that he's not completely unaware of his own failure. He's still kind of a nozzle. All right, let's look at 1, 2. I guess that's the next page. So we've got Hal and Falstaff. And of course, the fun fact about Falstaff is he was originally Sir John Oldcastle, and the current Oldcastle complained. The historical Hal did have a childhood friend, Sir John Oldcastle, who he later hung, but it was for Lollardism. Does anyone know what Lollardism is? It was sort of a proto-Reformation. It was before Protestants, but they were like the original Puritans before such a thing existed. They wanted religious reform, and he was one of them. So he was like a kind of a Puritan, which he's not here. Okay. So now we've got, so just comparing the introduction with the convoluted, overblown, self-contradictory, woe is me rhetoric of the king, and we get to the prince. Thou art sore fat-witted with drinking of old sack, and unbuttoning thee after supper, and sleeping upon benches after noon, that thou hast forgotten to demand which thou wouldest truly know. What a devil hast thou to do with the time of day, unless hours were cups of sack and minutes capon? I'm a speech impediment. I'm working on it. And clocks the tongues of bawds and dials the sign of leaping houses, and the blessed sun himself, a fair hot wench in flame-colored taffeta. I see no reason why thou shouldest be so superfluous to demand the time of the day. So this guy can use some words, huh? I mean, this is a really complicated thing that he's saying, and just bam, 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 just right off the top of his head. And so who are we supposed to think is more sort of adept? He's talking in prose too, right? And we know that turns out to not be his true language, if he has a true language. Who is the real Hal? That's why theater people love this play. And it's all about theatricality. So what do we learn about his relationship with Falstaff from this?
Pretty good one. You joke around a lot.
Yeah, you're bros. But it's a kind of bonding. But I think there's kind of a real hostility in that kind of male interaction. Does anyone want to argue with me on that, or maybe back that up? So, like, say you're in your frat house with your bros, and everybody's just insulting each other, and it's just somebody's chin's too big. I don't know what it. I've been so far out, I don't even know any men anymore. This is children and wives and dogs. And I just somebody might be peanut-headed, and I try to remember because this was a really important part of my life. But it seems like that when you jest with somebody and you lose, then it's sort of like losing a fight. I mean, you kind of lose cred, right? And if you can't hold your own in the battle of the wits, then you're sort of demasculinized or something, sort of like play fighting. I mean, I'm really asking because I'm trying to draw off ethnographic evidence that I have no bearing on it. It was like 50 years ago when I was a person. Any guys in here want to explain this to me?
I think it's like the alpha male kind of thing.
Yeah. So
with words, just beat you back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we see when we were talking about earlier when Falstaff is just completely punked, just on national TV, you know, and still gets out of it. I mean, that's just, I mean, you can't, that's just about as manly as a big fat slob can possibly be. And I mean, I think it does reinforce hierarchies, and it gives something, it gives us like kind of a naturalness and like a, like Hal really should be a king. He really can master these social situations, like he really actually is qualified to do it. Maybe, I don't know. Then we've got this moon stuff. Do I want to dwell on the moon stuff? Let's mention the moon stuff in passing. Remember the moon from Midsummer Night's Dream, right? And like the moon, and you know, that sort of it evokes what we were calling the green world, the in-between world outside of the law, where you can where you do highwaymen, you know, like the mythical hood of rap songs where everybody's shooting each other and everybody's having a good time, and everyone has rooms, and it's beautiful, luxuriant enjoyment of masculinity and strippers and stuff. You know, the green world. I'm supposed to cut down on the pop culture references. That was one of my New Year's resolutions. That's how he talks about the moon. So I mean, everybody's sort of always wondered about this, you know, like what is Falstaff doing in this play? It's a history play, you know, like this wasn't in Holinshed, the source, you know, it wasn't. I don't know, just keep it in mind, chew on it. I mean, people say comic relief. This was a thing they used to say.
In Russian literature, there's something called the wise fool. So it's a fool that can talk plainly to the king or the ruler at the time, because no one else can speak their mind. But the fool can, because everyone's like, oh, he's just a fool, whatever. But really, he's the one who's saying what everyone else is thinking. So, and it seemed kind of like that was his point, is to, you know, be the fool, but at the same time be the wise fool and tell how exactly, you know, where he's supposed to be, or, you know, kind of where his role is. But so in say kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shakespeare, actually, off the top of my head, I don't remember if we have any of the of those characters in the plays but Shakespeare has a lot of these characters that you know, the licensed fool that gets to say whatever you want to the king, and nobody can say anything back, because that's actually his job. He had a license for it. Yeah.
Doesn't that like Esther and Queen Mary?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but is he really speaking truth? I mean, that's the sort of. I mean, he definitely uses some of those conventions, and he's definitely that kind of character, and the same actor that played those characters is playing Falstaff, but. And he's got some of the tics and stuff, but I mean, does he really tell the truth? I mean, what's the truth?
There were a couple times where I think that
Yeah.
he came forth, but I guess not as often as the other ones, just the jester and the moon.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely that going on. Yeah, and then it's sort of and when you see a lot of these like when you have the plot scene where you've got Hotspur and his uncle and his dad sitting there plotting the rebellion, and then the next scene they're like plotting the fake purse snatching and the big joke. So you see, this is kind of a training ground. It's a little like pretend world, pretend politics, where the stakes are pretty low. But and you can see just the different ways. Let's look at page 11, 194 through 102. So this is when Falstaff kind of claims that. Well, let me get a Falstaff. We don't have enough time. What am I doing? Let's do it.
What page is it?
11 with the O. And we know, what is the O?
Changing mind.
Yeah. It signals aroused desire. Desire means a lot of things. I do not suggest that Falstaff is and Hal have a sexual relationship. It's been suggested. I am not suggesting it. Can somebody say this for me?
Oh, thou hast damnable iteration in art, indeed able to corrupt a saint. Thou hast done much harm upon me, Hal. God forgive thee for it. Before I knew thee, Hal, I knew nothing, and now am I, if a man should speak truly, little better than one of the wicked. I must give over this life, and I'll give it over. By the Lord, and I do not, I am a villain. I'll be damned for never a king's son in Christendom.
Thank you. Wonderful. So the gist here is, all right, we don't have enough time, so I'm going to leave myself to. Daniel, what's the gist here? The gist here is that he's blaming Hal for corrupting him. Normally, everybody's blaming him for corrupting Hal. But, and I have Crumbo's Shakespeare Maxim 108b, section 42. Characters always tell the truth, often without knowing it, when joking or speaking in hypotheticals. So we know from that passage on the drawer that Hal's kind of a jerk. And what if he really is fattening up the turkey for slaughter? What would be his motivations for that? You know, what if he really is? I mean, what's Falstaff going to do if Hal's not bankrolling him? Can he actually steal purses? Yeah, and couldn't pay his bar bill, couldn't pay his food bill. Well, more on that later. Now let's go to 199, one of the famous speeches. I know you all. Page 14. Anybody up to reading the whole thing?
I know you all, and will a while uphold the unyoked humor of your idleness. Yet herein will I imitate the sun, who doth permit to base contagious clouds to smother up his beauty from the world, that, when he pleases again to be himself, being wanted, he needing more wonder at, or breaking through the foul ugliness of vapors that did seem to strangle him. If all the year were playing holidays, sport would be as tedious as to work. But then they seldom come, they wished for come. And nothing pleaseth but rare accidents. So in this loose behavior I throw off, and pay the debt I never promised, by how much better than my word am I am. By so much shall I falsify men's hopes, and like bright metal on sullen ground, my reformation, glittering o'er my fault, shall show more goodly, and attract more eyes, than that which hath no foil to set it off. I'll so offend, and make offense a skill, redeeming time, and then think least I will.
Marvelous, thank you. All right, so we are not going to be able to do the full analysis of this, but let's get started. All right, so what's the first thing that we notice about what's different between what's going on before and what's going on with this? Who's he talking to? Yeah. And what language is he speaking in? I don't know. Prose? Is he speaking in verse? Verse. Yeah. And what was he speaking in before? Okay, so it's so are we supposed to think that Hal actually thinks in iambic pentameter? Has anyone ever acted a Shakespeare play? It's really weird. You start talking in iambic pentameter, and it turns out that it's really kind of the natural way to talk, and it goes with the. It's interesting. It is. You might not know it, but it is. And the reason they do that is that, as any Shakespearean actor will tell you, the verse is much easier to remember than the prose. Anywho. Wow, I'm just wasting more time. Good job. Okay, so we've got this, yet herein I will imitate the sun. So what's the weird word there? Imitate. Yeah, imitate. So
not actually.
Right. So yet herein will I imitate the sun, who doth permit the base contagious clouds to smother up his beauty from the world. Now, this this doesn't strike me as clear and knowing what the heck he's talking about. This reminds me of his father. All right, let's unpack this first image. Yet herein I will imitate the sun, who doth permit the base contagious clouds. So we've got the sun, and he's ascribing an agency to the sun. So in this universe, the sun is up there controlling the cloud, and he lets the clouds contaminate him. Yeah.
Metaphor for Falstaff, because he's basically finding Falstaff up and reading this awful character that he's going to then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And smother up his beauty from the world. And when he please again to be himself. So, and we saw this, we see this with, when Henry puts his foot down with Hotspur and company. And he says, I've been too lax, and now I'm going to be myself again. And himself is supposedly, the virile king. So probably we got some sort of himself. What sort of himself do you think that we're alluding? I mean, obviously the reformed power, right? Being wanted, he may be more wondered at by breaking through the foul and ugly mists of vapors that did seem to strangle him. See, I have yet to, I'm going to be honest with you. And the thing I like to do that's fun for me, like you guys like to party, go to movies, have friends, that sort of thing. I find passages in Shakespeare that are completely indecipherable and just pound my head against them until I pass out. And I'm doing that with this one, and I've never read a satisfactory reading of this passage. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, why would... Okay, so I'm going to imitate the sun and permit the base contagious clouds, because the idea is that you like the sun more when you see the sun, if it's been cloudy, right? Like, has anyone ever lived in the Pacific Northwest? Yeah, so I mean, when you see the sun, it's like, ah! But like, I mean, so mid-July here, you see the sun. Yeah, no, right? But, and so yeah, I'm okay with that. But he's talking about a political figure. So like, if I only see Obama every 3.5 months, am I going to like him more? I mean, this is sort of. I mean, I mean, am I going to wonder at him more or less? I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's just that he knows that people are looking at him now. And so everyone's looking at him and seeing he's doing all these bad things. But so when it's pretty much just laziness, so he knows that he doesn't have to work as hard to be wondered at because it'll be such a stark contrast.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be the lowering of expectations, because when people don't expect much from you, and then not only do you meet the expectation, but you far surpass it, it's that much more impressive.
That's the logic he's going for. But yeah, absolutely.
I think Shakespeare describing him some kind of deliberateness that sort of ruins the story in a way, because I mean this becomes a legendary tale of Reformation, but only if it's planned. The reasoning doesn't make sense. I mean, who would go, I want to make myself look like crap, and then miraculously become a good guy and everyone will trust me? I'm going, no, they're going to remember all the bad stuff. I mean, that's how it really works.
Yeah.
So I just think.
I mean, it's well. That's like that depends on if a Democrat or Republican, right? Because if you're a no, I mean it's I'm not advocating one or the other, but if you're a Democrat and there's a picture of you smoking weed 20 years ago, you're screwed. But if you're a Republican and say you were a big partier in college, and like there's lots of like coke and stripper friends, stripper stories about you, but you reformed, it's all groovy, right? So. But I mean, so I think we're inclined to forgive that in political figures. I mean, it depends on, because as you know, if you like Obama, he could walk down the street kicking babies in the face, and you're going to find a way to defend him. And if you don't like him, like he can actually pour, suck up greenhouse gases into his hair, and you're still going to think he's a jerk, right? But are you more inclined to like a political figure if he has a shaky past? So what I want us to think about, along with all of the slew of work that we've got to do between now and then, is what sort of person do we like to be reformed, and we like them better if they are reformed. And we'll